blessed love and peace. This is the recitation of Tobadi Gokadao, Torah, Bhagavad Gita, Digha Nikaya, Dhammapada, Gospels, Quran, and Tao Te Ching. The portion today is numero 18, which is Mishpatim, and that includes from Torah, Parsha Mishpatim, which is Shmot 21 a 24:18, from the Chandogya Upanishad. 3:1 a 11, Kanda 3:1 a 11. From the Bhagavad Gita, it is the Moksha Samyasa Yogahe, which is numero 18. From Tao Te Ching, it is chapter 18. From Nunyu 18. From Digha Nikaya, it is the Mahapadana Sutta 14, part 1. From the Dhammapada, it is the Malavagga, which is 18. From the Gospels, it is the Gospel of Mark, chapter 7-8. And from the Quran, it is Surah Maryam, which is 19. And from the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, it is the Sodar portion. Ta-da. Bismillah ar-Rahmani ar-Rahim. Allahu Akbar. Dao Kadao Fei Chong Dao Ming Kuming Fei Chong Ming. Ja Rastafari. Deus noste quies in cele santificato nomen tuum. Bahe Guru Satnam. Baruch Ata Elohim Eloheinu melech haolam asher kasanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'suk b'revai Torah. Amen. Baruch Ata Elohim Eloheinu melech haolam b'orei p'ri agafen. Amen. Kyrie eleison. Sivamastu save jagatehi sabe sata bhavantu sukhitata. Fagabiyam. Kwaba upendana amanim. Fakiri inisalami. Chinta dan paramean liabavimim. Umanjika. Ubuntu shabona fakitka. Shishem. Kamosunira domo arigato. Pelama yelo lokan toka toka dokushingu. Go man God. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Ata jamyat yata afanami. Bado. Ahom. Om shanti shanti shanti. Amen. Torah, Mishpatim, Shmot 21, 1 a 24:18. And these are the ordinances that you shall set before them. Should you buy a Hebrew slave, he shall work for 6 years, and in the 7th year he shall go out to freedom without charge. If he comes in alone, he shall go out alone. If he is a married man, his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the woman and her children shall belong to her master, and he shall go out alone. But if the slave says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go free, his master shall bring him to the judges, and he shall bring him to the door or to the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. Now if a man sells his daughter as a maidservant, she shall not go free as the slaves go free. If she is displeasing to her master, who did not designate her for himself, then he shall enable her to be redeemed. He shall not rule over her to sell her to another person when he betrays her. And if he designates her for his son, he shall deal with her according to the law of the daughters of Israel. If he takes another wife for himself, he shall not diminish her sustenance, her clothing, or her marital relations. And if he does not do these 3 things for her, she shall go free without charge, without payment of money. One who strikes a man so that he dies shall surely be put to death. But one who did not stalk him, but Elohim brought it about into his hand, I'll make a place for you to which he shall flee. But if a man plots deliberately against his friend to slay him with cunning, even from my altar you shall take him to die. And one who strikes his far or his more shall surely be put to death. And whoever kidnaps a man, and he is found in his possession, shall surely be put to death. And one who curses his far or his more shall surely be put to death. And if men quarrel, and one strikes the other with a stone or with a fist, and he does not die but is confined to his bed, if he gets up and walks about outside or on his support, the assailant shall be cleared. He shall give only payment for his enforced idleness, and he shall provide for his cure. And should a man strike his manservant or his maidservant with a rod, and that one die under his hand, he shall surely be avenged. But if he survives for a day or for 2 days, he shall not be avenged, because he is his property. And should men quarrel and hit a pregnant woman, and she miscarries, but there is no fatality, he shall surely be punished. When the woman's husband makes demands of him, and he shall give restitution according to the judge's orders. But if there is a fatality, you shall give a life for a life, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, a foot for a foot, a burn for a burn, a wound for a wound, a bruise for a bruise. And if a man strikes the eye of his manservant, or the eye of his maidservant, and destroys it, he shall set him free in return for his eye. And if he knocks out the tooth of his manservant, or the tooth of his maidservant, he shall set him free in return for his tooth. And if a bull gores a man or a woman, and that one dies, the bull shall surely be stoned, and its flesh shall not be eaten, and the owner of the bull is clear. But if it is a habitually goring bull since yesterday and the day before yesterday, and its owner had been warned, but he did not guard it, and it puts to death a man or a woman, the bull shall be stoned, and also its owner shall be put to death. Insomuch as ransom shall be levied upon him, he shall give the redemption of his soul according to all that is levied upon him. Or if it gores a young boy or a young girl, according to this ordinance shall be done to him. If the bull gores a manservant or a maidservant, he shall give silver in the amount of 30 shekels to his master, and the bull shall be stoned. And if a person opens a pit, or if a person digs a pit and does not cover it, and a bull or a donkey falls into it, the owner of the pit shall pay. He shall return money to its owner, and the dead body shall be his. And if a man's bull strikes his friend's bull, and it dies, they shall sell the live bull and divide the money received for it, and they shall also divide the dead body. Or if it was known that it was a habitually goring bull since yesterday and the day before yesterday, and its owner does not watch it, he shall surely pay a bull for a bull, and the dead body shall be his. If a man steals a bull or a lamb and slaughters it or sells it, he shall pay 5 cattle for the bull, or 4 sheep for the lamb. If, whilst breaking in, the thief is discovered, and he is struck and dies, it is as if he has no blood. If the soul is shown upon him, and it is as if he has blood, he shall surely pay. If he has no money, he shall be sold for his theft. If the stolen article is found in his possession, whether a bull, a donkey, or a lamb, live ones, he shall pay twofold. If a man leads his animals into a field or a vineyard, or lets his animal loose, and it eats in another's field, the best of his field or the best of his vineyard, he shall pay. If a fire goes forth and finds thorns, and a stack of grain or standing grain over the field be consumed, the one who ignited the fire shall surely pay. If a man gives his neighbor money or articles for safekeeping, and it is stolen from the man's house, if the thief is found, he shall pay twofold. If the thief is not found, the homeowner shall approach the judges to swear that he has not laid his hand upon his neighbor's property. For any sinful word, for a bull, for a donkey, for a lamb, for a garment, for any lost article concerning which he will say that this is it, the plea of both parties shall come to the judges, and whoever the judges declare guilty shall pay twofold to his neighbor. If a man gives his neighbor a donkey, a bull, a lamb, or any animal for safekeeping, and it dies, breaks a limb, or is captured, and no one sees it, the oath of Elohim shall be between the two of them, provided that he did not lay his hand upon his neighbor's property, and its owner shall accept it, and he shall not pay. But if it is stolen from him, he shall pay its owner, and if it is torn apart, he shall bring witness for it. For the torn one, he shall not pay. And if a person borrows an animal from his neighbor, and it breaks a limb or dies, if its owner is not with him, he shall surely pay. If its owner is with him, he shall not pay. If it is a hired animal, it has come for its hire. If a man seduces a virgin who is not betrothed and lies with her, he shall provide her with a marriage contract as a wife. If her father refuses to give her to him in marriage, He shall weigh out money according to the dowry of the virgins. You shall not allow a sorceress to live. Whoever lies carnally with an animal shall surely be put to death. He who slaughters an offering to the deities shall be destroyed except to Elohim alone. And you shall not mistreat a stranger, nor shall you oppress him, for you are strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall not oppress any widow or orphan. If you oppress him, beware, for if he cries out to me, I will surely hear his cry. My wrath will be kindled, and I will slay you with the sword, and your wives will be widows, and your children orphans. When you lend money to my people, to the poor person who is with you, you shall not behave towards him as a lender. You shall not impose interest upon him. If you take your neighbor's garment as security until the soleil sets, you shall return it to him. For it is his only covering, it is his garment for his skin. With what shall he lie? And it shall be that if he cries out to me, I will hear, because I am gracious. You shall not curse a judge, neither shall you curse a prince amongst your people. Your fullness offering and your heave offering you shall not delay. The firstborn of your sons you shall give me. So shall you do with your cattle and with your sheep. Yet 7 days it shall be with its more. On the 8th day you may give it to me. And you shall be holy people to me, and flesh torn in the field you shall not eat. You shall throw it to the dogs. You shall not accept a false report. Do not place your hand with a wicked person to be a false witness. You shall not follow the majority for evil, and you shall not respond concerning a lawsuit to follow many to pervert justice. Neither shall you glorify a poor man in his lawsuit. If you come upon your enemy's bull or his stray donkey, you shall surely return it to him. If you see your enemy's donkey lying under its burden, would you refrain from helping him? You shall surely help along with him. You shall not pervert the judgment of your poor man in his lawsuit. Distance yourself from a false matter, and do not kill a truly innocent person or one who has been declared innocent, for I will not vindicate a guilty person. You shall not accept a bribe, for a bribe will blind the clear-sighted and corrupt words that are right. And you shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the feelings of the stranger, since you were strangers in the land of Egypt. 6 years may you sow your land and gather in its produce, but in the 7th year you shall release it and abandon it. The poor of your people shall eat it, and what they leave over, the beasts of the field shall eat. So shall you do with your vineyard and to your olive trees. 6 days may you do your work, but on the 7th day you shall rest, in order that your ox and your donkey shall rest, and your maidservant's son and the strangers shall be refreshed. Concerning all that I have said to you, you shall beware, and the name of the deities of others you shall not mention. It shall not be heard through your mouth. 3 times you shall slaughter sacrifices to me during the year. You shall observe the festival of unleavened bread. For 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, as I have commanded you, and at the appointed time of the month of springtime. For then you left Egypt, and they shall not appear before me empty-handed. And the festival of the harvest, the first fruits of your labors, which you will sow in the field, and the festival of the ingathering at the departure of the year, when you gather in the products of your labors from the field. 3 times during the year all your males shall appear before the Master Elohim. You shall not offer the blood of my offering with leaven, and the fat of my festive offering you shall not stay overnight until Matan. The choice of the first fruits of your soil you shall bring to the house of Elohim your God. You shall not cook a kid in its more's milk. Behold, I am sending an angel before you to guard you on the way, and to bring you to the place that I have prepared. Beware of him and obey him. Do not rebel against him, for he will not forgive your transgression, for my name is within him. For if you hearken to his voice and do all that I say, I will hate your enemies and oppress your adversaries. For my angel will go before you and bring you to the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and I will destroy them. You shall not prostitute yourself before their deities, and you shall not worship them, and you shall not follow their practices, but you shall tear them down, and you shall utterly shatter their monuments. And you shall worship Elohim your God, and Elohim will bless your food and your drink, and I will remove illness from your midst. There will be no bereaved or barren women. There will be no bereaved or barren woman in your land. I will fill the number of your days. I will set my fear before you, and I will confuse all the people amongst whom you shall come, and I will make all your enemies turn their backs to you. And I will descend the Zerah before you, and it will drive out the Hivites and the Canaanites and the Hivites from before you. I will not drive them away from before you in 1 year, lest the land become desolate, and the beasts of the field outnumber you. I will drive them out from before you little by little, until you have increased and can occupy the land. I will make your boundary from the Sea of Reeds to the Sea of the Philistines, and from the desert to the river. For I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hands, and you shall drive them out from before you. You shall not form a covenant for them or for their deities. You shall not dwell in your They shall not dwell in your land, lest they cause you to sin against me, that you will worship their deities, which will be a snare for you. And Moshe Elohim said, Come up to Elohim, you and Aaron, Nadav, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and prostrate yourselves from a distance. And Moshe alone shall approach Elohim, but they shall not approach, and Elohim and the people shall not ascend with him. So Moshe came and told the people all the words of Elohim and the ordinances, and all the people answered in unison and said, All the words that Elohim has spoken we will do. And Moshe wrote all the words of Elohim, and he arose early in the matin and built an altar at the foot of the mountain, and 12 mountains for he built an altar at the foot of the mountain, and 12 monuments for the 12 tribes of Israel. And he set the youth of the children of Israel, and they offered up burnt offerings, and they slaughtered up peace offerings to Elohim bulls. And Moshe took half the blood, and put it into basins, and half the blood he cast onto the altar. And he took the book of the covenant and read it within the hearing of the people, and they said, All that Elohim spoke we will do, and we will hear. And Moshe took the blood and sprinkled it on the people, and he said, Behold, the blood of the covenant which Elohim has formed with you concerning these words. And Moshe and Aaron, Nadav and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel ascended. And they perceived Elohim of Israel, and beneath Elohim's feet was like the forming of a sapphire brick, and like the appearance of the heavens for clarity. And upon the nobles of the children of Israel, Elohim did not lay Elohim's hand, and they perceived Elohim, and they ate and drank. And Elohim said to Moshe, Come up to me to the mountain and remain there. I will give you the stone tablets, the law and the commandments, which I have written to instruct them. Moshe and Yehoshua his servant arose, and Moshe ascended to the mount of Elohim. And to the elders he said, Wait for us here until we return to you, and here Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever has a case, let him go to them. And Moshe went up to the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain, and the glory of Elohim rested on the Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. And Elohim called to Moshe on the 7th day from within the cloud. And the appearance of the glory of Elohim was like a consuming fire atop the mountain before the eyes of the children of Israel. And Elohim came within the cloud and went up to the mountain, and Moshe was upon the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. Yonder, Chandogya Upanishad, Kanda 3:1-11. Yonder Soleil is verily the honey of the celestials. Heaven is the crossbeam, the mid-region is the hive. The particles of water vapors drawn by the Soleil through its rays are the eggs. The eastern rays of the Soleil are the eastern honey cells. The Rig verses are the bees. The ritual laid down in the Rig Veda is the flower. The water of the sacrificial libations is the nectar of the flower. These rigs heated the Rig Veda. From it, thus heated, issued forth as its essence fame, radiance of the body, vigor of the senses, virility, and the food that is eaten. That essence flowed forth and went towards the Soleil, and that forms what is called the red color of the rising Soleil. The southern rays of the Soleil are the southern honey cells, the Yajus Vedas. The Yajus verses are the bees. The ritual laid down in the Yajur Veda is the flower. The water of the offertory libation is the nectar of the flower. These Yajus verses heated the Yajurveda from it, thus heated, issued forth as its essence, fame, radiance of the body, vigor of the senses, virility, and the food that is eaten. That essence flowed forth and went towards the soleil. That forms what is called the white color of the soleil. The western rays of the soleil are the western honey cells. The Saman verses are the bees. The Sama Veda is the flower. The water is the nectar. The Samans heated the Sama Veda from it, thus heated, issued forth as its essence, fame, radiance, vigor of the senses, virility, and the food that is eaten. That flowed forth and went towards the soleil. That forms what is called the dark color of the soleil of Brahman. The northern rays of the soleil of Brahman are the northern honey cells. The verses of the Atharvangirasa are the bees. The Tahasa Purana is the flower. The water is the nectar. These very hymns of the Atharvangirasa heated the Yatasa Purana from it, thus heated, issued forth as its essence, fame, radiance, vigor of the senses, virility, and the food that is eaten. That flowed forth and went towards the soleil of Brahman. That forms what is called the extremely dark color of the soleil of Brahman. Now the upward rays of the soleil are the honey cells of the soleil of Brahman are the honey cells above. The secret teachings of the Upanishads are the bees. Brahman, Om, is the flower. The water is the nectar. These secret teachings as the bees heated Brahman, Om. From it thus heated, issued forth as its essence, fame, radiance, vigor of the senses, virility, and the food that is eaten. That flowed forth and went towards the soleil of Brahman. That forms what appears to stir in the center of the soleil of Brahman. These different colors in the soleil of Brahman are the essences of the essences. For the Vedas are the essences, and these colors are again their essences. These are the nectars of the nectars. For the Vedas are the nectars, in other words, the eternally living, and of them, these colors in the soleil of Brahman are the nectars. On the first of these nectars, the Vasus of Brahman live, with Agni, fire of Brahman, at their head. Truly the celestials do not eat or drink. They are satisfied by merely looking at the nectar. They retire into that red color and rise up from that color. He who thus knows this nectar becomes one of the Vasus of Brahman, and with Agni, fire of Brahman, at their head, he is satisfied by merely looking at the nectar. He retires into that red color and again rises up from that color. As long as the soleil of Brahman rises in the east and sets in the west, so long does he, like the Vasus of Brahman, enjoy rulership and sovereignty. On the second of these nectars, the Rudras of Brahman live, with Indra of Brahman at their head. Truly the angels do not eat or drink. They are satisfied by merely looking at the nectar. They retire into that white color and rise up from that color. He who thus knows this nectar becomes one of the Rudras of Brahman, with Indra of Brahman at their head. He is satisfied by merely looking at the nectar. He retires into that white color and again rises up from that color. As long as the soleil rises in the east and sets in the west, twice as long does it rise in the south and set in the north, and just so long does he, like the Rudras of Brahman, enjoy rulership and sovereignty. On the third of these nectars, the Adityas of Brahman live, with Varuna of Brahman at their head. Truly the angels do not eat or drink. They are satisfied by merely looking at the nectar. They retire into that dark color and rise up from that color. He who thus knows this nectar becomes one of the Adityas of Brahman, with Varuna of Brahman at their head. He is satisfied by merely looking at the nectar. He returns into that dark color and again rises up from that color. As long as the soleil rises in the south and sets in the north, twice as long does it rise in the west and set in the east, and just so long does he, like the Adityas of Brahman, enjoy rulership and sovereignty. On the fourth of these nectars, the Maruts of Brahman live, with Soma of Brahman at their head. Truly the angels do not eat or drink. They are satisfied by merely looking at the nectar. They retire into that extremely dark color and rise up from that color. He who thus knows this nectar becomes one of the Maruts of Brahman, with Soma of Brahman at their head. He is satisfied by merely looking at the nectar. He retires into that extremely dark color and again rises up from that color. As long as the soleil rises in the west and sets in the east, twice as long does it rise. So long as the soleil of Brahman rises in the west and sets in the east, twice as long does it rise in the north and set in the south, and just so long as he, like the Maruts of Brahman, enjoy rulership and sovereignty. On the fifth of these nectars, the Satyas of Brahman live with Brahma of Brahman at their head. Truly, the angels do not eat or drink, they are satisfied by merely looking at the nectar. They retire into that form and rise up from that form. He who thus knows this nectar becomes one of the Satyas of Brahman with Brahma of Brahman at their head. He is satisfied by merely looking at the nectar. He retires into that form and again rises up from that form. As long as the soleil rises in the north and sets in the south, twice as long does it rise above and set below, and just so long as he, like the Satyas of Brahman, enjoy rulership and sovereignty. Now after having risen thence upwards, the soleil of Brahman rises and sets no further. It remains alone in the center, and on this there is the following verse. There, in Brahmaloka, the soleil of Brahman neither rises nor sets at any time. O ye angels, if this is true, may I never fall from Brahman. Verily, for him who thus knows this Brahma of Brahman, Upanishad, the soleil of Brahman does not rise or set. For him it is day forever. This doctrine Brahma of Brahman told Prajapati to Manu to his offspring, and to Udalaka Aruni. This doctrine of Brahman was narrated by his far. A far may therefore tell that doctrine of Brahman to his eldest son or to a worthy disciple. It must not be told to anyone else, even if he should offer one of the whole secret earth full of treasure. For this doctrine is worth further than that, yea, it is worth further. Bhagavad Gita Moksha Samya Sa Yogehe 18. Arjuna says, I desire to know the true nature of Sannyasa and Tyaga, as distinguished from each other, O mighty Rishikesa, O slayer of Kesi. Sri Krishna says, the renunciation of works induced by desire is understood by the sages to be sannyasa, whilst the surrender of the fruits of all works is called tyaga by the wise. Some philosophers declare that all works should be relinquished as evil. Others say that works of offering, gift, and austerity should not be given up. Learn from me, O best of Bharatas, the truth about the relinquishment, for relinquishment is declared to be of three kinds, O tiger amongst men. Acts of offering, gift, and austerity must not be given up, but should be performed, for verily offering, gift, and austerity purify the wise. Even these works, however, should be done without attachment and desire for fruit. The Soparta is my conclusive and final judgment. The renunciation of obligatory action is not proper. Its abandonment from delusion is declared to be of the nature of tamas. The renunciation of man who abandons a duty from fear of physical suffering because it is painful is of the nature of rajas. It does not bring him the fruit of renunciation. When a man performs an obligatory action but only because it ought to be done and renounces all attachment and the fruit, his renunciation or Arjuna is characterized by sattva. The wise man of renunciation who is endowed with sattva and whose doubts are dispelled never hates a duty that is disagreeable nor feels attachment to a duty that is agreeable. It is indeed impossible for any embodied being to renounce action entirely, but he who renounces the fruit of action is regarded as one who has renounced. The threefold fruit of action, desirable, undesirable, and mixed, accrues after death to those who have not renounced, but none whatever to the sannyasis. Learn from me, O mighty Arjuna, the five causes that bring about the accomplishment of a work, as declared in the philosophy of knowledge, which puts an end to all action. The body, the doer, the different senses, the many and various functions of the vital breaths, and the presiding celestial as the fifth. Whatever action a man performs with his body, speech, or mind, whether right or wrong, these five are its causes. That being so, the man of perverted mind, who on account of his impure understanding looks on the self, the absolute, as agent, he sees not at all. He who is free from the feeling of eye consciousness and whose understanding is undefiled, though he slays these men, he slays not, nor is he bound. Knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower form a threefold incitement to action, and the instrument, the object, and the doer are the threefold bases of action. Knowledge, action, and the doer are declared in the science of the gunas to be of three kinds, according to the distinction of the gunas. Hear of them as they are. The knowledge by which the one indestructible substance is seen in all beings undivided in the divided, know that that knowledge is of the nature of sattva. But that knowledge through which one sees in all beings various entities of different kinds and as differing from one another, know that that knowledge is of the nature of rajas. And the knowledge that is confined to one single effect, as if it were the whole, as if it was as and is without reason, without foundation in truth, and trivial, that knowledge is declared to be of the nature of tamas. The action that is obligatory and is done without love or hate by one who desires no fruit and who is free from attachment, that action is characterized by sattva. But the action that is performed with much effort by one who seeks to gratify his desires or who is prompted by a feeling of I, that action is declared to be of the nature of rajas. But the action that is performed with much effort by one who seeks to gratify his desires or who is prompted by a feeling of I, that action is declared to be of the nature of rajas. Whereas the action that is undertaken through ignorance, without regard to consequences or loss or injury, and without regard to one's ability, that action is said to be of the nature of tamas. The doer who is free from attachment and egoism, who is endowed with fortitude and zeal, and who is unaffected by success and failure, he is said to be of the nature of sattva. The doer who is passionately attached to action and desirous of its fruit, who is greedy, violent, and impure, and who is moved by joy and sorrow, he is declared to be of the nature of rajas. The doer who is unsteady, vulgar, and arrogant, deceitful, malicious, and indolent, desponding, and procrastinating, he is said to be of the nature of tamas. Hear from me the threefold distinction of understanding and firmness according to the gunas, O Dhananjaya, and as I explain them severally and fully. The understanding that determines for a man the path of work and renunciation, right or wrong, that determines for a man fear and fearlessness, bondage and liberation, that aparta is of the nature of sattva. The understanding that gives a distorted apprehension of dharma and adharma, of what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, that aparta is of the nature of rajas. The understanding that being enveloped in darkness regards adharma as dharma and reverses all values, that aparta is of the nature of tamas. The firmness that is accompanied by unswerving concentration and by which one controls the activities of the mind, the pranas, and the senses, that aparta is of the nature of the sattva. But the firmness by which one holds fast to dharma, pleasant and wealth, desiring the fruit of each through an intense attachment, that aparta is of the nature of rajas. And the firmness by which a stupid person does not give up his sleep, fear, grief, despondency, and sensuality, that aparta is of the nature of tamas. And now hear from me, O Bharata Prince, the three kinds of happiness. That in which a man comes to rejoice by practice, and in which he reaches the end of pain, and that which is like poison at first, but like nectar in the end, that happiness born of the clear knowledge of the self is said to be of the nature of sattva. That which arises from the contact of the senses with their objects, and which is like nectar at first, but like poison in the end, that happiness is said to be of the nature of rajas. But that which deludes the soul at the beginning and even after its termination, and which springs from sleep, sloth, and error, that happiness is declared to be of the nature of tamas. There is no creature here on earth, nor amongst the angels in the heaven, who is free from the three gunas born of prakriti. The duties of Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras have been assigned according to the gunas born of nature. Control of the mind, control of the senses, austerity, cleanliness, forbearance, and uprightness, as also knowledge, realization, and faith, these are the duties of a Brahmin born of his own nature. Heroism, high spirit, firmness, resourcefulness, dauntlessness, and battle, generosity, and sovereignty, these are the duties of a Kshatriya born of his own nature. Agriculture, cattle rearing, and trade are the duties of a Vyasa born of his own nature. And the duty of a Sudra born of his own nature is action consisting of service. Man attains high perfection by devotion to his own duty. Hear from me, O Arjuna, how perfection is attained by him who is devoted to his own duty. By worshipping Brahman, from whom all beings proceed, and by whom the whole universe is pervaded, by worshipping Brahman through the performance of duty, through the performance of duty does a man attain perfection. Better is one's own dharma, though imperfect, than the dharma of another well performed. He who does the duty ordained by his own nature incurs no sin. One ought not to give up the work to which one is born, O son of Kunti, though it has its imperfections. For all undertakings are beset with imperfections, as fire with smoke. He whose mind is not attached to anything, who has subdued his heart, and who is free from all longing, he by renunciation attains the supreme perfection, which is freedom from action. Learn from me, in brief, O son of Kunti, how one who has reached such perfection realizes Brahman, which is the supreme consummation of knowledge. Endowed with a pure understanding, restraining the self with firmness, turning away from sound and other objects, and abandoning love and hatred. Dwelling in solitude, eating but little, controlling the speech, body and mind, ever engaged in meditation and concentration, and cultivating freedom from passion. Forsaking conceit and power, pride and lust, wrath and possessions, tranquil in heart and free from ego, he becomes worthy of becoming one with Brahman. Having become Brahman and being tranquil in heart, he neither grieves nor desires. He treats all like all beings and attains supreme devotion to me. By that devotion he knows me, knows what in truth I am, and who I am. Then, having known me in truth, he forthwith enters into me. Even though engaged in all kinds of action, a man who has taken refuge in me reaches by my grace the eternal and imperishable abode. Surrendering in thought all actions to me, regarding me as the supreme goal, and practicing steadiness of mind, fix your heart, O Arjuna, constantly on me. Fixing your heart on me, you will overcome every difficulty by my grace. But if from self-conceit you do not listen to me, you shall perish utterly. If indulging in self-conceit you say to yourself, I will not fight, vain is your resolution, your nature will compel you. Bound by your own karma, O son of Kunti, which is born of your very nature, what through delusion you seek not to do, you shall do even against your will. Brahman dwells in the hearts of all beings, O Arjuna, and by Brahman's maya causes them to revolve as thought mounted on a machine. Take refuge in Brahman alone with all your soul, O Bharata. By Brahman's grace will you gain supreme peace and the everlasting abode. Thus has wisdom further profound than all profundities been declared to you by me. Reflect upon it fully and act as you will. Again, listen to my supreme word, the profoundest of all. You are well beloved of me, therefore I will tell you what is for your benefit. Fix your heart on me, give your love to me, worship me, bow down to me, so shall you come to me. This is my pledge, for you are dear to me. Abandon all different forms of dharma and come to me alone for shelter. I will deliver you from all sins. Do not grieve. You must not speak about it to one who is not austere in life or without devotion, nor to one who does not wish to hear, nor to one who speaks ill of me. He who with supreme devotion to me teaches this deeply profound philosophy to those who are devoted to me shall without question come to me. There is none amongst men who can do anything further pleasing to me than he. Nor shall there be another on earth dearer to me than he. And he who will study this sacred dialogue of ours, by him shall I have been worshipped through knowledge as a sacrifice, which is my judgment. And the man who hears this, full of faith and free from malice, even he liberated from sin, shall attain the happy regions of the righteous. Has it been heard by you, O Partha, with an undivided mind? Has your delusion born of ignorance been destroyed, O Dhananjaya? Arjuna says, my delusion is gone, I have regained my memory through your grace, O Krishna. I am firm, I am free from doubt, I will act according to your word. Sanjaya says, thus did I hear this wonderful dialogue between Krishna and the high-souled Arjuna, which caused my hair to rise. Through the grace of Vyasa I have heard this supreme and profound yoga direct from Krishna, the master of yoga, by Brahman's self teaching him. O King, every time I remember this wonderful sacred dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, I rejoice again and again and over again. And as often as I remember that most wonderful form of Krishna, great is my astonishment, O King, and I rejoice again and again. The side that has Krishna, the master of yoga, and the side that has Arjuna, the wielder of the Gandiva, there surely will be fortune, victory, prosperity, and right conduct, such is my conviction. Tao Te Ching, 18. The great Tao fades away. There is benevolence and justice. Intelligence comes forth. There is great deception. The 6 relations are not harmonious. There is filial piety and kind affection. The country is in confused chaos. There are loyal ministers. Le New 18. The Viscount of Wei leaves him. The Viscount of Qi becomes a slave on account of him, and Pi Kan loses his life for remonstrating with him. Kong Fuzi comments, there were 3 benevolent men in the yin. Lu Ca Hui was dismissed 3 times when he was judged. Someone says, is it not time for you to leave? If in the service of another one is not prepared to bend the way, where can one go without being dismissed 3 times? If in the service of another one is prepared to bend the way, what need is there to leave the country of one's far and more? And considering the treatment he should accord Kong Fuzi, Duke Qing of Qi says, I'm unable to accord him such exalted treatment as the Qi family receives. So I place him somewhere between the Qi and the Ming, saying, I am getting old, I am afraid I will not be able to put his talents to utilization. Kong Fuzi departs. The men of Qi make a present of singing and dancing girls. Qi Huan Ci accepts them and stays away from court for 3 days. Kong Fuzi departs. Qi Yi, the madman of Chu, goes past Kong Fuzi singing, Phoenix, O Phoenix, how thy virtue has declined. What is past is beyond help. What is to come is not yet lost. Give up, give up. Perilous is the lot of those in office today. Kong Fuzi gets down from his carriage with the intention of speaking with him, but the madman avoids him by hurrying off, and in the end, Kong Fuzi is unable to speak with him. Chong Chu Qi and Qi Nui Che Ni were plowing together, yoked as a team. Kong Fuzi goes past them and sends Su Lu to ask them where the ford was. Chong Chu says, who is that taking charge of the carriage? Su Lu says, it is Kong Chi. Then he must be the Kong Chi of Lu. He is. Then he doesn't have to ask where the ford is. Su Lu asks Che Ni. Che Ni says, who are you? I am Chung Yu. Then you must be the disciple of Kong Chi of Lu. Su Lu answers, I am. Throughout the empire, men are all the same. Who is there for you to change places with? Further, for your own sake, would it not be better if, instead of following a gentleman who keeps running away from men, you followed one who runs away from the world altogether? All this whilst he carried on harrowing without interruption. Su Lu goes and reports what was said to Kong Fuzi. The master is lost in thought for a while and says, one cannot associate with birds and beasts. Am I not a member of this human race? Who then is there for me to associate with? Whilst the way is to be found in the empire, I will not change places with him. Tu Lu, when traveling with Kong Fuzi, falls behind. He meets an old man carrying a basket on a staff over his shoulder. Tu Lu asks, have you seen my master? The old man says, you seem neither to have toiled with your limbs nor to be able to tell one kind of grain from another. Who may your master be? He planted his staff in the ground and started weeding. Tu Lu stands, cupping one hand respectfully in the other. The old man invites Tu Lu to stay for the night. He kills a chicken and prepares some millet for his guest to eat and presents his 2 sons to him. The next day, Tu Lu resumes his journey and reports this conversation. The master says he must be a recluse. He sent Tu Lu back to see him again. When he arrives, the old man had departed. Tu Lu comments, not to enter public life is to ignore one's duty. Even the proper regulation of old and young cannot be set aside. How then can the duty between ruler and subject be set aside? This is to cause confusion in the most important of human relationships, simply because one desires to keep unsullied one's character. The gentleman takes office in order to do his duty. As for putting the way into practice, he knows all along that it is hopeless. Men who withdraw from society, po yi shu qi yu chong yi yi, chu chong yu sua wi, sha lin. The master comments, not to lower their purpose or to allow themselves to be humiliated, describes perhaps po yi and shu qi. Of Li Ca Hui and Shao Lin, he says, they indeed lowered their purpose and allowed themselves to be humiliated, but their words were in accord with their station and their deeds with circumspection. That was all. Of Yu Chung and Yu Yi, he says, they live as recluses and gave free rein to their words, thus their persons accorded with purity and their words with a right measure. I, however, am different. I have no preconceptions about the permissible and the impermissible. Chi, the grand musician, leaves for Chi. Kan, musician for the second chorus, leaves for Chu. Lao, musician for the third chorus, leaves for Ca. Chue, musician for the fourth chorus, leaves for Qin. Feng Shu, the drummer, crosses the river. Wu plays the hand drum, crosses the river. Yang, the grand musician's deputy, and Tong, who plays the stone chimes, crosses the sea. The Duke of Chu says to the Duke of Lu, the gentleman does not treat those closely related to him casually, nor does he give his high officials occasion to complain because their advice was not heeded. Unless there are grave reasons, he does not abandon officials long standing. He does not look for all around perfection in a single person. There were 8 gentlemen in Chao: Pa, Ta, Po, Quo, Chung Tu, Chung Hu, Shu Yi, Shu Ca, Shu Qi Si, and Qi Qua. Digha Nikaya, the Mahapadana Sutta 14. Thus have I heard. The Exalted One was once staying at Savatthi in Anatta Pindika's pleasaunce in the Jeta wood, at the Karari tree cottage. Now amongst many bhikshus who had returned from their alms tour and were assembled, sitting together after their meal in the pavilion of the Karari grounds, a religious conversation bearing on previous births arose to the effect that thus and thus were previous births. And the Exalted One, with clear and heavenly ear, surpassing the hearing of men, overheard this conversation amongst the bhikshus. And arising from a seat, he came to the pavilion in the Kirari grounds and took his seat on the mat spread out for him. And when he had sat down, he said to the brethren, "What is the talk on which you are engaged sitting here? And what is the subject of conversation between you?" And they told him all. Then he said, Do you not wish, brethren, to hear some religious talk on the subject of former lives? Now is the time, O Exalted One, now is the time, welcome one, for the Exalted One to give us a religious discourse on the subject of former lives. When the brethren have heard from the Exalted One, they will bear it in mind. Wherefore then, brethren, hearken well to me, and I will speak. So be it, Master, replied the brethren. And the Exalted One said, It is now 91 eons ago, brethren, since Vipassi, the Exalted One, Arahat Buddha Supreme, arose in the world. It is now 31 eons ago, brethren, since Sikhi, the Exalted One, Arahat Buddha Supreme, arose in the world. It was in that same 31st eon, brethren, that Vesabu, the Exalted One, Arahat Buddha Supreme, arose in the world. It was in this present auspicious eon, brethren, that Kakusanda, the Exalted One, Arahat Buddha Supreme, arose in the world. It was in this auspicious eon, brethren, that Konagamana, the Exalted One, Arahat Buddha Supreme, arose in the world. It was in this auspicious eon, brethren, that Kasapa, the Exalted One, Arahat Buddha Supreme, arose in the world. It is in this auspicious eon, brethren, that now I and Arahat Buddha Supreme have arisen in the world. In the like manner, the rest of this Vipassi, the 91 eon from now, noble Jati, Kondanya family, Kondanya rank, Ochenta mil length of life, Patali family, Kanda Tisa, Kanda and Tisa, the tree under which he becomes enlightened. Siki, 31 eons from now. Noble Jati, Kondanya, social rank, Senta mil years, the length of life. Pundarika family, Abihu, Pundarika tree, Abihu and Sambhava family. Vesabu, 31 eons from now. Noble Jati, Kondanya, social rank, 60 mil years, the length of life of the epoch. The solid tree, and Sona and Uttara as family. Kakusanda, in this eon, Brahmin Jati, Kasapa, social rank, 40 mil years, the life of the epoch. The Sirisa tree, and Vidura and Sanjiva as family. Konagamana, in this eon, Brahmin Jati, Kasapa, social rank, 30 mil years, the length of life at this epoch. The Udambara tree, and Biosa and Uttara as family. Kasapa, in this eon, Brahmin Jati, Kasapa, social rank, Viente mil years, the length of life of the epoch. The Nagroda tree, Tisa and Bharavaja as family. Gautama, in this eon, noble Jati, Gautama, the social rank, Siente length of life, Siente years, the length of life of the epoch. The Asata tree, Sariputta and Moggallana as family. Vipasi, Siki, Vaisabu, Kakusanda, Konagamana, Kasapa, Gautama. Vipassi, Kanda and Tisa as chief disciples. Numbers of Arahats present at assemblies: 68 lakh, 7,000 lakh, 7,080,000. Usual attendant Bhikshu Asoka, far Banduma and more Bandumati, birthplace Bandumati. Sikhi. Uno, Vipassi. 91 Ian, noble Jati, Kondanya family, length of life 8,000 years. Enlightenment tree, the Batali. The chief disciples Kanda and Tisa. Number of Arahats present at assembly: 68 lakh, 1,100,000, 80,000. Usual attendant Bhikshu Asoka, far Banduma, more Bandumati, birthplace Bandumati. Dos, Sikhi. 31 eons from now, noble rank, noble Jati, Kondanya family, 70,000 years length of life of Epoch, Pundarika, the tree from enlightenment. Chief disciples Abibu and Sambhava. Number of Arahats present at assembly: 7,000, 80,000, 70,000. Name of usual attendant Bhikshu Keman Kura, far Aruna, more Pabhavanti, birthplace Pabhavanti. Birthplace Pavati, more Pabhavati, birthplace Pabhavati. Tres, Vesabu. 31 eons from now, the noble Jati, Kondanya family, length of life 60,000 years, the solitary of enlightenment. Chief disciples Sona and Uttara. Number of Arahats present at assemblies: 80,000, 70,000, 60,000. Usual attendant Bhikshu Upasanaka, far Supatita and more Yasavati, birthplace Anupama. 4. Kakusanda. In this eon, Brahmin Jati Kasapa family, length of life 40,000 years, tree of enlightenment Sirisa. Chief attendants Vidura Sanjiva. Number of Arahats present at assembly 40,000. Usual attendant Bhikshu Budija, far Agidata and more Visakha, birthplace Kemavati. 5. Konagamana. In this eon, Brahmin Jati Kasapa family, length of life 30,000 years, tree of enlightenment Dudumbara. Chief disciples Biosa and Uttara. Number of Arahats present at assemblies 30,000. Usual attendant Bhikshu Sotija, far Yanadatta, more Uttara, birthplace Sobhavati. 6. Kasapa. In this eon, Brahmin Jati, Kasapa family, length of life 20,000 years, tree of enlightenment Nagroda. Chief disciples Tissa and Bharadvaja. Number of Arahats present at assemblies 20,000. Usual attendant Bhikshu Sambhamita, far Brahmadatta, more Dhanavati, birthplace Varanasi. 7. Gotama. In this eon, Brahmin Jati, Gotama family, length of life 100 years, tree of enlightenment Asata. Chief disciple Sariputta Mongalana. Number of Arahats present at assembly 1,250. Usual attendant Bhikshu Ananda, far Sudodana, More, Maya. Birthplace, Kapilavatthu. Now, not long after he had gone out, this talk arose amongst the brethren. How wonderful a thing, brethren, and how strange is the great genius, the mastermind of the Tathagata, that he should remember of the Buddhas of old, who attained final completion, who cut off obstacles, who cut down barriers, who have ended the cycle, who have escaped from all sorrow, that he should remember all these, that such was their rank, such were their personal names, such were their family names, such the span of their lives, such their pair of disciples, and such the number of the congregations of their disciples, telling us of what such was the birth of those exalted ones, such were their names and their clans, such were their virtues, their doctrines, their wisdom. Thus did they live, and thus they gained emancipation. Now, what think you, brother? Has the principle of Dharma been clearly discerned by the Tathagata, so that by his discernment of it he remembers all those facts about the Buddhas of the past? Or have angels revealed this matter to the Tathagata, so that thereby he remembers? Now such was the trend of the talk that was going on amongst the brethren, when the Exalted One, rousing himself at eventide from meditation, went to the pavilion in the Karari grounds, and took his seat, and the map spread out for him. And when he had sat down, he said to the brethren, What is the talk on which you are engaged, brethren, as ye sit here? And what was the subject of conversation between you? And they told him all. It is through this clear discernment of a principle of the Dharma, brethren, that the Tathagata is able to remember all those facts about the Buddhas of old. And angels also have revealed these matters to him, enabling him to remember all those things. Do ye not wish, brethren, to hear yet further religious discourse bearing on former lives? Now, O Exalted One, is the time. Now, O Welcome One, is the time. Whatsoever the Exalted One may tell us further, bearing on former lives, the brethren will listen to it and bear it in mind. Wherefore, brethren, hearken and attend well, and I will speak. So be it, Master, replied the brethren. The Exalted One said, I have told you, brethren, when Vipassi, the Exalted One, Arhat Buddha Supreme, arose in the world, into what rank and family he was born, how long he lived, where he became a Buddha, the names of his leading disciples, the number of his disciples, the naming of his ministering bhikshu, of his far, his more, and of their place of residence. Now Vipassi, brethren, when as Bodhisattva he ceased to belong to the host of the heaven of the light, descended into his Moor's womb, mindful and self-possessed, that in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when the Bodhisattva ceases to belong to the host of the heaven of delight and enters a Moor's womb, there is made manifest throughout the universe, including the worlds above of the angels, the Maras and the Brahmas, and the world below with its recluses and Brahmins, its princes and peoples, an infinite and splendid radiance passing the glory of the angels, even in those spaces which are between the worlds, baseless, murky, and dark, and where even moon and soleil, so wondrous and mighty, cannot prevail to give light. Even there is made manifest this infinite and splendid radiance passing the glory of the angels. And those beings who happen to be existing there, perceiving each other by that radiance, say, Verily there be other beings living here. And the 10,000 worlds of the universe tremble and shudder and quake. And that this infinite splendid radiance is made manifest in the world passing the glory of the angels, that in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when the Bodhisattva is descending into a Moor's womb, 4 sons of the angels go towards the 4 quarters to protect him, saying that no one, be he human or non-human or whatsoever he be, work harm to the Bodhisattva or to the Moor of the Bodhisattva. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when the Bodhisattva is descending into a Moor's womb, the Moor of the Bodhisattva is a woman virtuous through her own nature, averse from taking life, averse from taking what is not given, averse from unchastity, averse from lying speech, averse from indulgence in strong drinks. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when the Bodhisattva is descending into a Moor's womb, that the Moor has no mind for indulgence in the pleasures of sense with men, and is incapable of transgression with any man whatever who may be enamored of her. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when the Bodhisattva is descending into a Moor's womb, that Moor is living in the enjoyment yielded by the 5 senses, is addicted to it, possessed of it, surrounded by it. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when the Bodhisattva is descending into a Moor's womb, no ailment whatsoever befalls that Moor. At ease is she and unafflicted in body, and within her womb she sees the Bodhisattva complete in the endowment of all his organs and his limbs. Just as if, brethren, there were a beautiful cat's eye gem of purest water, octangular, cut with supreme skill, translucent and flawless, excellent in every way, and through it were strung a thread, blue or orange, red, white, or yellow. If a man who had eyes to see were to take it into his hand, he would clearly perceive how the one was strung on the other. Even so, brethren, when the Bodhisattva is descending into a Moor's womb, no ailment whatever befalls that Moor. At ease is she and unaffected in body, and within her womb she sees the Bodhisattva complete in the endowment of all his organs and his limbs. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that on the seventh day after the birth of a Bodhisattva, the Moor of the Bodhisattva dies and rises again in the heaven of delight. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that whereas other women bring forth after bearing either 9 or 10 months, the Moor of a Bodhisattva brings not forth till she has borne the child 10 months. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that whereas the other women bring forth sitting or reclining, the Moor of a Bodhisattva brings forth not so, but standing. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when a Bodhisattva issues from his Moor's womb, angels receive him first, afterwards men. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when a Bodhisattva issues from his Moor's womb and has not yet touched the earth, for 4 sons of the angels to receive him and present him to the Moor, saying, Rejoice, lady, for mighty is the son that is born to thee. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when a Bodhisattva issues from his Moor's womb, he comes forth stainless, undefiled by watery matter, undefiled by mucus, undefiled by blood, undefiled by uncleanness, whatever, pure, spotless. Just as if, brethren, a jewel were laid down on Benares muslin, the jewel is not stained by the muslin, nor the muslin stained by it. And why is that? Because of the purity of both. Even so, brethren, is it at the birth of a Bodhisattva. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when a Bodhisattva issues from his Moor's womb, 2 showers of water appear from the sky, one of cold and the other of warm water, wherewith they do the needful bathing of the Bodhisattva and of his Moor. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when a Bodhisattva has come to birth, he stands firm on both feet, with his face to the north, takes 7 strides, the while a white canopy is held over him, and looking around on every side, he utters as with the voice of a bull, Chief am I in the world, eldest am I in the world, foremost am I in the world. This is the last birth, there is now no further coming to be. That in such a case is the rule. It is the rule, brethren, that when a Bodhisattva issues from his Moor's womb, there is made manifest through the universe, including the worlds above of the angels, the Maras and the Brahmas, and the world below with its recluses and Brahmas, its princes and peoples, an infinite and splendid radiance passing the glory of the angels. Even in those spaces which are between the worlds, baseless, murky, and dark, and where even moon and soleil, so wondrous and mighty, cannot prevail to give light, even there is manifest this infinite and splendid radiance passing the glory of the angels. And those beings who can happen to be existing there, perceiving each other by that radiance, say, Verily there be other beings living here. And the 10,000 worlds of the universe tremble and shudder and quake. And this infinite and splendid radiance is made manifest in the world, passing the glory of the angels. This in such a case is the rule. When the boy Vipassi, brethren, was born, they brought word to Bandhuman the Raja, saying, a son, my master, is born to you, may it please you to see him. Now when Bandhuman the Raja had seen the babe, he sent forth for Brahmin soothsayers, saying, Let the revered Brahmin soothsayers see the child. Then, brethren, when the Brahmin soothsayers had seen the child, they said to Bandhuman the Raja, Rejoice, master, for one of the mighty ones is born thy son. Fortune is thine, my master, benevolent fortune is thine, in that in thy family such a son has come to birth. For this babe, my master, is endowed with the 32 marks of the great man, and to one so endowed 2 careers lie open, and none other. If he live the life of the house, he becomes master of the wheel, a righteous master of the right, ruler of the 4 quarters, conqueror, guardian of the people's benevolence, owner of the 7 treasures. His do those 7 treasures become, to wit, the wheel treasure, the elephant treasure, the horse treasure, the gem treasure, the woman treasure, the steward treasure, the eldest son treasure, making 7. Further than 1,000 sons will be his, heroes, vigorous of frame, crushers of the hosts of the enemy. He, when he has conquered this earth to its ocean bounds, is established not by the scourge, not by the sword, but by righteousness. But if such a boy go forth from the life of the house into the homeless state, he becomes an Arahata Buddha Supreme, rolling back the veil from the world. And what, my master, are the 32 marks on the great man, wherewith endowed this child hath 2 careers open to him, and only 2, that of the master of the wheel, that of the Buddha Supreme. This babe my master has feet with level tread. That this is so counts to him as one of the marks of a great man. On the bottoms of the babe's feet, wheels appear with 1,000 spokes, with tire and hub in every way complete. That this is so counts to him as one of the marks of a great man. This babe has projecting heels. He is long in the fingers and long in the toes, soft and tender in hands and feet, with hands and feet like a net. His ankles are like rounded shells. His legs are like an antelope's. Standing in without bending, he can touch and rub his knees with either hand. His male organs are concealed in a sheath. His complexion is like bronze, the color of gold. His skin is so delicately smooth that no dust cleaves to his body. The down on it grows in single hairs, one to each pore. The small hairs on his body turn upwards. Even hair of it blue-black in color, like eye paint, in little curling rings curling to the right. This babe has a frame wholly straight. He has the 7 convex surfaces. The front half of his body is like a lion's. There is no furrow between his shoulders. His proportions have the symmetry of the banyan tree. The length of his body is equal to the compass of his arms, and the compass of his arms is equal to his height. His bust is equally rounded. His taste is supremely acute. His jaw is as a lion's. He has 40 teeth, regular teeth, continuous. The eye teeth very lustrous. His tongue is very long. He has a sacred voice like the Karavika birds. His eyes are intensely blue. He has the eyelashes of a cow. Between the eyebrows appears a hairy mole, white and like soft cotton down. His head is like a royal turban. This too counts to him as one of the marks of a great man. Endowed, my master, as is this babe with these 230 marks of the great man, 2 careers and none other are open to him. Master of the wheel, and that of Buddha Supreme. Thereupon Bandaman the Raja, brethren, let the Brahmin soothsayers be invested with new robes and gratified their every desire. And Bandaman the Raja, brethren, engaged nurses for the babe Vipassi. Some suckled him, some washed him, some nursed him, some carried him about on their hip. And a white canopy was held over him day and night, for it was commanded, let not cold or heat or straws or dust or dew annoy him. And the boy of Apasi, brethren, became the darling and the beloved of the people, even as a blue or red or white lotus is dear to and beloved of all, so that he was literally carried about from lap to lap. And when the boy of Apasi was born, brethren, he had a lovely voice, well modulated and sweet and charming, just as the voice of the Karavika bird in the mountains of Himalaya is lovely and sweetly modulated and charming. And when the boy of Apasi was born, brethren, there was manifested in him the heavenly eye, born of the result of his karma, by the which verily he could see as distant as a league by day and eke by night. And when the boy of Apasi was born, brethren, he looked forward with unblinking eyes like the angels in the heaven of delight. Now it was because of this people exclaiming, Vipassi, Vipassi, a seer, that this became his name. And again, brethren, whilst Bandaman Raja was sitting as judge, he would take the boy on his hip and so lay down the law as to the cases arising, till verily the boy thus seated on his father's hip and continually considering would also determine the points of the matter according to justice. Then at the thought, it is the babe who is judging cases aright, even further and further did that word Asir become utilized as his name. Now Bandaman Raja, brethren, had 3 palaces built for the boy of Vipassi, one for the rains, one for the winter, and one for the summer, and he had them fitted with every kind of gratification for the 5 senses. Thus it came to pass that Vipassi spent the 4 months of the rainy season in the rains palace, ministered to by the bands of female musicians, and not once did he come down from the upper terrace into the mansion. Dhammapada Lamalavaga 18. Like a withered leaf are you now. Death's messengers await you. You stand on the eve of your departure, yet you have made no provision for your journey. Make an island for yourself. Strive hard and become wise. Rid of impurities and cleansed of stain, you shall enter the celestial abode of the noble ones. Your life has come to an end now. You are setting forth into the presence of Yama, the king of death. No resting place is there for you on the way, yet you have made no provision for the journey. Make an island unto yourself, strive hard and become wise. Rid of impurities and cleansed of stain, you shall not come again to birth and decay. One by one, little by little, moment by moment, a wise man should remove his own impurities as a smith removes his dross from silver. Just as rust arising from iron eats away the base from which it arises, even so their own deeds lead transgressors to states of woe. Non-repetition is the bane of scriptures, neglect is the bane of a home, slovenliness is the bane of personal appearance, and heedlessness is the bane of a guard. Unchastity is the taint in a woman, stinginess is the taint in a giver. Taints indeed are all evil things, both in this world and the next. A worse taint than these is ignorance, the worst of all taints. Destroy this one taint and become taintless, O monks. Easy is life for the shameless one who is impudent as a crow, is backbiting and forward, arrogant and corrupt. Difficult is life for the modest one who always seeks purity, is detached and unassuming, clean in life and discerning. One who destroys life, utters lies, takes what is not given, goes to another man's wife, and is addicted to intoxicating drinks. Such a man digs up his own root even in this world. Know this, O benevolent man, evil things are difficult to control. Let not greed and wickedness drag you to protracted misery. People give according to their faith or regard. If one becomes discontented with the food and drink given by others, one does not attain meditative absorption either by day or by night. But he in whom this discontent is fully destroyed, uprooted, and extinct, he attains absorption both by day and by night. There is no fire like lust, there is no grip like hatred, there is no net like delusion, there is no river like craving. Easily seen is the fault of others, but one's own fault is difficult to see. Like chaff, one winnows another's faults, but hides one's own, even as a crafty fowler hides behind sham branches. He who seeks another's faults, who is ever censorious, his cankers grow, he is distant from destruction of the cankers. There is no track in the sky and no recluse outside the Buddha's dispensation. Mankind delights in worldliness, but the Buddhas are free from worldliness. There is no track in the sky and no recluse outside the Buddha's dispensation. There are no conditioned things that are eternal and no instability in the Buddhas. Gospels, Mark 7 a 8. The Pharisees and some of the teachers of the law who had come from Yerushalayim gathered around Jesus and saw some of his disciples eating food with hands that were defiled, that is, unwashed. The Pharisees and other Jewish brethren do not eat unless they give their hands a ceremonial washing, holding to the tradition of the elders. When they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash, and they observe many other traditions, such as the washing of cups, pitchers, and kettles. So the Pharisees and teachers of the law asked Jesus, "Why don't your disciples live according to the tradition of the elders, instead of eating their food with defiled hands?" He replied, "Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites, as it is written, 'These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are distant from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules.' You have let go of the commands of God and are holding on to human traditions." And he continued, "You have a fine way of setting aside the commands of God in order to observe your own traditions. For Moshe said, 'Honor your far and more,' and anyone who curses their far or more is to be put to death. But you say that if anyone declares that what might have been utilized to help their far or more is korban, that is devoted to God, then you no longer let them do anything for their far or more. Thus you nullify the word of God by your tradition and by your tradition that you have handed down, and you do many things like that." Again, Jesus called the crowd to him and said, "Listen to me, everyone, and understand this. Nothing outside a person can defile them by going into them. Rather, it is what comes out of a person that defiles them." After he had left the crowd and entered the house, his disciples asked him about this parable. "Are you so dull?" he asked. "Don't you see that nothing that enters a person from the outside can defile them? For it doesn't go into their heart, but into their stomach, and then out of the body." In saying this, Jesus declared all foods clean. He went on, "What comes out of a person is what defiles them. For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come. Sexual indecency, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from inside and defile a person." Jesus Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered the house and did not want anyone to know it, yet he could not keep his presence secret. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an impure spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek born in Syria, Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Master, she said, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, for such a reply you may go, the demon has left your daughter. She went home and found her child lying on the bed and the demon gone. Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon, down to the Sea of Galilee and into the region of the Decapolis. There some people brought to him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk, and they begged Jesus to place his hand on him. After he took him aside away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven and with a deep sigh said to him, Ephphatha, which means be opened. At this the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosened, and he began to speak plainly. Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone, but the further he did so, the further they kept talking about him. People were overwhelmed with amazement. He has done everything well, they said. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. During those days another large crowd gathered. Since they had nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. If I send them home hungry, they will collapse on the way, because some of them have come a long distance. His disciples answered, but where in this remote place can anyone get enough bread to feed them? How many loaves do you have? Jesus asked. 7, they replied. He told the crowd to sit down on the ground. When they had taken the 7 loaves and given thanks, he broke them and gave them to his disciples to distribute to the people, and they did so. They had a few small fish as well. He gave thanks for them also, and told the disciples to distribute them. The people ate and were satisfied. Afterward, the disciples picked up 7 basketfuls of broken portions that were left over. About 4,000 were present. After he had sent them away, he got into a boat with his disciples and went to the region of Dalmanuta. The Pharisees came and began to question Jesus. To test him, they asked him for a sign from heaven. He sighed deeply and said, why does this generation ask for a sign? Truly I tell you, no sign will be given to it. Then he left them, got back into the boat, and crossed to the other side. The disciples had forgotten to bring bread, except for 1 loaf they had with them in the boat. Be careful, Jesus warned them. Watch out for the yeast of the Pharisees and that of Herod. They discussed this with one another and said, it is because we have no bread. Aware of their discussion, Jesus asked them, why are you talking about having no bread? Do you still not see or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Do you have eyes but fail to see, and ears but fail to hear? And don't you remember when I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, and how many basketfuls of portions did you pick up? 12, they replied. And when I broke the 7 loaves for the 4,000, how many basketfuls of portions did you pick up? They answered, 7. He said to them, do you still understand? Do you still not understand? They came to Bethsaida, and some people brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. When he had spit on the man's eyes, he put his hands on him. Jesus asked, do you see anything? He looked up and said, I see people. They look like trees walking around. Once further, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. Then his eyes were opened, his sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. Jesus sent him home, saying, don't even go into the village. Jesus and his disciples went on to the villages around Caesarea Philippi. On the way he asked them, who do people say I am? They replied, some say John the Baptist, others say Eliyahu, and still others one of the prophets. But what about you? He asked. Who do you say I am? Peter answered, you are the Messiah. He then began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and after 3 days rise again. He spoke plainly about this, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter. Get behind me, Satan, he said. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. Then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. What benefit is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? If anyone is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his Creator's glory with the holy angels. With the holy angels. Surah Maryam 19. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Kaf Ha Ya Ain Sad. This is a recital of the mercy of thy Lord to Allah's servant Zechariah. Behold, he cried to his Lord in secret, praying, O my Lord, infirm indeed are my bones, and the hair of my head doth glisten with grey, but never am I unblessed, O my Lord, in my prayer to thee. Now I fear what my relatives and colleagues will do after me, but my wife is barren, so give me an heir as from thyself, one that will truly represent me and represent the posterity of Yaakov, and make him, O my Lord, one with whom thou art well pleased. His prayer was answered. O Zechariah, we give thee benevolent news of a son. His name shall be Yahya. On none by that name have we conferred distinction before. He said, O my Lord, how shall I have a son when my wife is barren, and I have grown quite decrepit from old age? Allah said, So it will be, thy Lord saith, that it is easy for me. I indeed create thee before when thou hadst been nothing. Zechariah said, O my Lord, give me a sign. Thy sign was the answer shall be that thou shalt speak to no man for 3 nights, although thou art not dumb. So Zechariah came out to his people from his chamber, and he told them by signs to celebrate Allah's praises in the Meta and in the evening. To his son came the command, O Yahya, take hold of the book with might, and we gave him wisdom even as a youth, and piety for all creatures as from us, and purity. He was devout and kind to parents, and he was not overbearing or rebellious. So peace on him the day he was born, the day that he dies, and the day that he will be raised up to life again. Late in the book, the story of Mary, when she withdrew from her family to a place in the east, she placed a screen to screen herself from them. Then we sent her our angel, and he appeared before her as a man in all respects. She said, I seek refuge from thee to Allah, most gracious. Come not near if thou dost fear Allah. He said, Nay, I am only a messenger from thy Lord to announce to thee the gift of thy holy son. She said, How shall I have a son, seeing that no man has touched me, and I am not unchaste? He said, So it will be. Thy Lord saith that it is easy for me, and we wish to appoint him as a sign unto men and a mercy from us. It is a matter so decreed. So she conceived him, and she retired with him to a remote place. And the pains of childbirth drove her to the trunk of a palm tree, and she cried in her anguish, Ah, would that I had died before this, would that I had been a thing forgotten and out of sight. But a voice cried to her from beneath the palm tree. Grieve not, for thy Lord hath provided a rivulet beneath thee, and shake towards thyself the trunk of the palm tree. It will let fall fresh ripe dates upon thee. So eat and drink and cool thine eye, and if thou dost see any man, say, I have vowed a fast to Allah most gracious, and this day will I enter into it, not talk with any human being. At length she brought the babe to her people, carrying him in her arms. They said, O Mary, truly an amazing thing hast thou brought. O sister of Aaron, thy father was not a man of evil, nor thy mother a woman unchaste. But she pointed to the babe. They said, How can we talk to one who is a child in the cradle? He said, I am indeed a servant of Allah. Allah hath given me revelation and made me a prophet. And Allah hath made me blessed wheresoever I be, and hath enjoined on me prayer and charity as long as I live. Allah hath made me kind to my more, and not overbearing or miserable. So peace is on me the day I was born, the day that I die, and the day that I shall be raised up again to life. Such was Jesus, the day that I shall be raised up to life again. Such was the Such was Jesus, the son of Mary. It is a statement of truth about which they vainly dispute. It is not befitting to the majesty of Allah that Allah should beget a son. Glory be to Allah. When Allah determines a matter, Allah only says to it, be, and it is. Verily Allah is my Lord and your Lord. Allah therefore serve ye. There is a way that is straight. But the sects differ amongst themselves, and woe to the unbelievers because of the coming judgment of a momentous day. How plainly will they see and hear the day that they will appear before us, but the unjust today are in error manifest. But warn them of the day of distress, when the matter will be determined, for behold, they are negligent, and they do not believe. It is we who will inherit the earth, and all beings thereon. To us they will all be returned. Also mentioned in the book the story of Abraham. He was a man of truth, a prophet. Behold, he said to his father, O my father, why worship that which heareth and not, and seeth not, and can benefit thee nothing? O my father, to me hath come knowledge which hath not reached thee, so follow me. I will guide thee to a way that is even and straight. O my father, serve not Satan, for Satan is a rebel against Allah most gracious. O my father, I fear lest a penalty afflict thee from Allah most gracious, so that thou become to Satan a friend. The father replied, Dost thou hate my deities, O Abraham? If thou forbear not, I will indeed stone thee. Now get away from me for a benevolent while, a long while. Abraham said, Peace be on thee. I will pray to my Lord for thy forgiveness, for Allah is to me most gracious. And I will turn away from you I will turn away from you all, and from those whom ye invoke besides Allah. I will call on my Lord. Perhaps by my prayer to my Lord, I shall be not unblessed. When he had turned away from them and from those whom they worship besides Allah, we bestowed on him Yitzhak and Yaakov, and each one of them we made a prophet. And we bestowed of our mercy on them, and we granted them lofty honor on the tongue of truth. Also mentioned in the book the story of Moshe, for he was specially chosen, and he was an apostle and a prophet. And we called him from the right side of Mount Sinai, and made him draw near to us for mystic converse. And out of our mercy we gave him his brother Aaron, also a prophet. Also mentioned in the book the story of Ishmael, he was strictly true to what he promised, and he was an apostle and a prophet. He used to enjoin on his people prayer and charity, and he was most acceptable in the sight of his Lord. Also mentioned in the book the case of Idris. He was a man of truth and sincerity, and a prophet, and we raised him to a lofty station. Those were some of the prophets on whom Allah did bestow Allah's grace, of the posterity of Adam, and of those who we carried in the ark with Noah, and of the posterity of Abraham and Israel, of those whom we guided and chose. Whenever the signs of Allah most gracious were rehearsed to them, they would fall down in prostrate adoration and in tears. But after them there followed a posterity who missed prayers and followed after lust. Soon then will they face destruction. Except those who repent and believe and work righteousness, for these will enter the garden and will not be wronged in the least. Gardens of eternity, those which Allah most gracious has promised to Allah's servants, is in the unseen, for Allah's promise must necessarily come to pass. They will not there hear any vain discourse, but only salutations of peace, and they will have therein their sustenance for meta and evening. Such is the garden with which we give as an inheritance to those of our servants who guard against evil. The angels say, We descend not but by command of thy Lord. To Allah belongeth what is before us, and what is behind us, and what is between, and thy Lord never doth forget. Lord of the heavens and of the earth, and of all that is between them, so worship Allah, and be constant and patient in Allah's worship. Knowest thou of any who is worthy of the same name as Allah? Man says, when I am dead, shall I then be raised up alive? But does not man call to mind that we created him before out of nothing? So by thy Lord, without doubt, we shall gather them together, and also the evil ones with them. Then shall we bring them forth on their knees round about hell. Then shall we certainly drag out from every sect all those who were worst in obstinate rebellion against Allah most gracious. And certainly we know best those who are most worthy of being burned therein. Not one of you will pass over it. This is with thy Lord a decree which must be accomplished. But we shall save those who guarded against evil, and we shall leave the wrongdoers therein humbled to their knees. When our clear signs are rehearsed to them, the unbelievers say to those who believe, which of the two signs is best in point of position, which makes the best show in counsel. But how many countless generations before them have we destroyed, who were even better in equipment and in glitter to the eye? Say, if any man go astray, Allah most gracious extends the rope to them until when they see the warning of Allah being fulfilled, either in punishment or in the approach of the hour, they will at length understand who is worst in position and who weakest in forces. And Allah doth advance in guidance those who seek guidance, and the things that endure. Benevolent deeds are best in the sight of thy Lord as rewards, and best in respect of their eventual return. Hast thou then seen the sort of man who rejects our signs, yet says, I shall certainly be given wealth and children? Has he penetrated to the unseen, or has he taken a contract with Allah most gracious? Nay, we shall record what he says, and we shall add to his punishment. To us shall return all that he talks of, and he shall appear before us bare and alone. And they have taken for worship deities other than Allah to give them power and glory. Instead they shall reject their worship and become adversaries against them. Seest thou not that we have set the evil ones on against the unbelievers to assail them with fury? So make no haste against them, but we count out to them a limited number of days. The day we shall gather the righteous to Allah most gracious, like a band presented before a king for honors. And we shall drive the sinners to hell like thirsty cattle driven down to water. And it shall have the power of intercession, but such a one as has received permission or promise from Allah most gracious. They say, Allah most gracious has begotten the sun. Indeed, ye have put forth a thing most monstrous, and the skies are ready to burst, the earth to split asunder, and the mountains to fall down in utter ruin, that they should invoke a son for Allah most gracious. For it is not consonant with the majesty of Allah most gracious that Allah should beget a son. Not one of the beings in the heavens and the earth, but must come to Allah most gracious as a servant. Allah does take an account of them all, and hath numbered them all exactly, and every one of them will come to Allah singly on the day of judgment. On those who believe and work deeds of righteousness will Allah most gracious bestow love. So have we made the Quran easy in thine own tongue, that with it thou mayest give glad tidings to the righteous and warnings to people given to contention. But how many countless generations before them have we destroyed? Canst thou find a single one of them now, or hear so much as a whisper of them? Sri Guru Granth Sahib, Sodar. O Vaheguru, how beautiful and wonderful must be the door of that house of yours, sitting where you keep watch over everyone's interest and look after us all. How numerous must be the singers with their singing instruments, and in how many melodies and measures might they be singing songs in your honor, in your praise. The air, the water, the fire, and the minister of justice sitting in your court are all singing your praises. Even the mythological scribes Chitra and Gupta, the conscious and subconscious minds, who continuously record human beings' benevolent and bad deeds, on the basis of which the minister of justice judges each person, are singing your praise. O Vaheguru, Shiva, the angel of destruction, Brahma, the angel of creation, the other female angels, including many Indras, the angel of rain, are singing your praise. The sages in their meditation and the saints reflecting upon your name are all singing your adoration. Humans who are known for their restraint, piety, or contentment, and brave warriors are all are singing up for you. The pundits and great scholars who for ages have been reciting the Vedas sing your praise. Even the most superbly attractive men and women and the inhabitants of heaven, earth, and underworlds sing about you. O Vaheguru, so also sing the jewels created by you, along with all the 68 holy places, the great brave warriors, and all the four sources of creation are singing your praises. All the continents, the solar systems, and all the galaxies are singing your praise. However, O Vaheguru, only those truly sing in your praise who are pleasing to you and who are imbued with your devotion. There are so many others who sing your praise, but they don't come to mind. How can Nanak deliberate over this matter? Vaheguru, who created this universe, is present now, and Vaheguru shall always remain present. That Vaheguru is eternal, and Vaheguru's creation is also eternal. Vaheguru, who has created this universe of various species, colors, and kinds, watches over that what Vaheguru creates at Vaheguru's pleasure. In short, Vaheguru is the sovereign of all sovereigns. Vaheguru does what pleases Vaheguru, and no one can bid Vaheguru to do any action. Therefore, O Nanak, the best thing for us is to simply abide by Vaheguru's will. O Vaheguru, how many further must be singing your praise? I cannot even think of them. O Vaheguru, upon listening from others, everyone says you are great, but how great you actually are, one can only say after seeing you. You cannot be appraised or described. Those who tried to describe your greatness were so lost that in their reflections that forgetting their own existence, they remained absorbed in you. O my great master of unfathomable depth and oceans of virtue, no one knows how much and how vast is your expanse. O Vaheguru, in order to estimate your greatness, all contemplative persons contemplated upon you, and all appraisers tried to appraise your worth, and all the renowned scholars and meditators and their great teachers tried their utmost, but they could not describe even a little bit of your greatness. O Vaheguru, all the charities, all penance, all virtues, or the great merits of the adepts and sages have not been achieved by them independently. Without your grace, no one has ever attained perfection. When by your grace they obtain these merits, no one can stop them from receiving these merits. O Vaheguru, what can the humble narrator say about your merits? Your treasures are brimful with your virtues. Whom you bless with these virtues, they need not look to anyone else for anything. In short, O Nanak, Vaheguru is eternal and embellisher of all. O my Moor, when I utter Vaheguru's name, I feel alive in my spirit, but if I forsake this Simran, I feel as if I am dead. It is very difficult to utter this true name or do Nam Simran. When one feels hungry for the true Nam, then by satisfying this hunger with Nam, all one's pains are ended. O my Moor, why should one forget that Vaheguru by Vaheguru, who by Vaheguru is eternal, and whose name is eternal? Many people have tried and tired, but could not describe even an iota of the value of the true eternal name. The beauty is that even if all people started praising Vaheguru, Vaheguru does not become any greater or any lesser. The praise of Vaheguru is for our own benefit and does not bestow any favor upon Vaheguru. Vaheguru never dies, and nobody ever cries on account of Vaheguru's death. Vaheguru gives eternally, and Vaheguru's gift never falls short. This is his singular merit that there is none like This is Vaheguru's singular merit that there is none like Vaheguru, nor will there ever be. O Vaheguru, as great as you are, so great is your beneficence. It is you who has made the days and nights. Therefore, those who forsake such a great master are miserable wretches. Yes, O Nanak, persons without Vaheguru's name are truly unworthy. O devotee of Vaheguru, O true being, O my Guru, I make the supplication before you like small insects and worms. We, the humble and the lowly creatures, have sought your refuge. Please take pity upon us and illuminate our mind with Vaheguru's Nam. O my friend and Guru, Vaheguru, please awaken the light of Nam in me. I beseech that the Nam obtained through my Guru's instruction should remain my friend for life, and Vaheguru's praise should be my daily prayer. O Guru, very fortunate are those servants of Vaheguru who always have a longing for Vaheguru. Such persons feel satisfied only upon being blessed with Vaigu's Nam and Vaigu's loving adoration. Their merits shine when they join the holy congregation. They who have not tasted the sweet nectar of Vaigu's name are unfortunate, and they are handed over to the demon of death. They suffer spiritual death and agony of mind, and their life is accursed. Such is the fate of those who have not sought the refuge of the true Guru. Truly blessed with great destiny are those who receive this opportunity to join the company of the holy persons. O Nanak, blessed again and again is that true congregation where the devotees have obtained the relish of Vaigu and have been illumined with Vaigu's Nam. O my mind, why are you so much worrying yourself about the means to care for your family when it is Vaigu by Vaigu who is engaged in this care? Even those creatures which Vaigu has created in mountains and stones, Vaigu has provided for their sustenance in advance. O my Guru, the person who joins the company of the holy persons is saved from such worries by Guru's grace. Even the person who is so worried obtains a supreme status, and as is from dead wood, he has blossomed like a green tree. O my mind, neither more far nor others, including wife, son, nor daughter, can provide any true support. It is only Vaigu who provides sustenance to each and every creature. Therefore, O my mind, why are you so anxiety-ridden and fearful about your future? O my mind, just think of those swallows which fly thousands of miles away from their offspring. Explain to me in the absence of their parents who feeds them and suckles them. All their parents do is to simply remember and pray to a Gahe Guru in their minds. It is Vaigu by Vaigu who takes care of these baby swallows. O my friends, all the 9 treasures are, and all the 18 supernatural miraculous powers are within easy reach of Vaigu. Therefore, Nanak says, Vaigu, that we are a sacrifice to you ever and forever. Your expanse has no end or limit. Alhamdulillah, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Allah Wabham, Dao Ka Dao, Fei Chong Dao, Ming Ka Ming, Fei Chong Ming, Ja Rastafari, Deus Nos de Kies and Chele, Santa Fakito Namatum, Vahe Guru Satnam, Baruch Chata Elohim, Elohim Melech Elam, Meshikasan Bomis David Zivan, Super Vaitfara, Amen. Baruch Chata Elohim, Elohim Melech Elam, Bare Periagafen, Amen. Kyrie eleison, Seva Mastu Savajigatahi, Sabe Sata, Pavantu Sukitata, Fagabia. Aquaba, upendo na mani, fikiri nesse nami, tinta dam para mim, liba mim, o mediga. Ubuntu shubando fakidga. Shashem, como se mira, damo agato, pela magia, boca, toco, 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 shimper, kubanigan, God, we thank you for the blessings. Ata jama yata fanami, mado, shanti, 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 amen. Namaste, assalamu alaikum, shalom. Mir, Jai Janindra, Satnam, Zaijen, adios, Che Chaklis, Sayonara. Salangwa Pyongwa, Metta Samadhi, Eshwaso, Agape Ke Irini, Esempene Asamuje, Kele Ofred, love and peace, blessed love and peace. All thanks and praise to the Most High Elohim Jah, the Rastafari.